What's going on in Russia, man? Is it safe right now? Is it getting crazy over
No,
there?
no,
I feel like everybody's at
it
war,
never
man.
been it never been safe, and it's never been not crazy.
I'm from Iran, so I feel the same way. So it's never been safe and always been kind of crazy.
So, do Iranian people really want change there,
Yeah,
political change?
yeah. I would say 10% of the country is Muslim. The other 90% wants to be free. Doesn't want to have anything to
So,
do with Arab culture
if it's only 10%, why IRGC is still on power?
because we don't have guns.
You have lots of people.
Yeah, but you saw what happened. They open. See, the difference is Iran. It's a very vicious regime. So they will literally just kill children. They will shoot everybody in sight, which is what they did. They killed 50,000 people in 2 nights. You know?
Okay, if we are talking about the situation which is right now, so why would those ayatollahs come to the power from the first place?
Because the Shah at the time. Are you familiar with the Shah? I assume.
I don't.
So the Shah at the time, they looked at him as like a Western puppet. They look at him as a plant from U.S. A lot of people in Iran didn't like it at the time. He was making a lot of money. He didn't let the money trickle down to the people, which is the mistake that he made. At the same time, President Carter, the French Republic, England, they all wanted the Shah gone because he was getting too powerful, and they didn't want Iran to become that powerful. So they were in communication with Ayatollah Khomeini at the time, which, that garbage. I'm sure you know what happened with him. But they supported him. So that's why he became the leader of Iran, was in support of the CIA, America, France, and England. And obviously he was a communist, so he said he was going to give free shit to everyone in Iran, brainwash people. People were poor. They signed up to get free stuff, and overnight Sharia law became the country.
But wasn't that revolution supported by the very huge portion of population?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, they were absolutely brainwashed. Yeah, absolutely brainwashed.
But the thing is, I put responsibility on people, not on the those who in charge. Because if you're saying they were brainwashed, why would they allow themselves to be brainwashed? The point is that even though if you bring the Shah back to the charge, why do you think you wouldn't go again through that cycle which you went through?
Because they've seen 47 years of people getting slaughtered for not wearing wearing nail polish on their fingers. I don't think
Yes.
it's something that
Current generation, next generation would be raised under the Shah, and they wouldn't see any that suffering which people seeing right now.
they
Like,
would
for
though.
example, Americans, Europeans don't see it, and they want communism right now.
They would see it though. That's the thing though. The next generation would see what happened because with internet everything lives on. Hence the reason the newer generation, Generation Z in Iran, wants the Shah back because they got to see the footage of what Iran used to look like in the 70s. So the next generation, they would just see the footage of what happened, what Iran used to look like, and they'll be like, "Oh, that's what it used to be like. Women used to get raped in jail for not wearing their hijab. Yeah, let's not go back to that." Plus Iran, again, we're a 6,000 year culture, man. We were Zoroastrian. We have our own culture. This shit's been around for 50 years. The country's 6,000 years old. You know,
So you're saying free internet, people wouldn't like to go back there. So why would people in USA, in Europe, want to bring Sharia law or communism or other stuff?
they shouldn't. Why would?
Why it's so popular there?
Why? Because they're retarded. I don't know what's happening in Europe. I don't know why they're falling for that. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. I don't understand it. I don't, because again, me being Iranian, I watched it happen to my people. So as when I see Mamdani in New York City, I try to tell everyone in New York, like, hey man, all this communist free shit that you guys want, they're gonna take your freedom from you for it. Don't fall for this shit.
But, but why do people want free shit?
But laziness, bro. Laziness.
And that's what I'm saying. Even though if you bring Shah or somebody back to Iran, you would go through that cycle again.
It wouldn't though, because he's trying to bring it to a a democratic state. So he's like a transitional leader. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to run a monarchy. He doesn't want to be a king at
No,
all.
I'm saying even though if you make it some sophisticated country with the democracy and other stuff, people will still be
Communists?
Yes,
No,
leaning to communism or
absolutely
other
not. No,
stuff.
no, no. One of the chants in Iran is death to communism, because people know it doesn't work. They've seen it. They're like, yeah, this does not work. We need
Uh,
capitalism. They're
so
deaf.
death to communism, and yet the communists are the ones who brought ayatollahs on charge.
Yeah, because they're the ones with the weapons. They're trying to
So
overthrow
how
the.
come they are so powerful if they didn't have support?
Well, they did have support 47 years ago, but ever since then, all they've done is just kill people that tried to go against them.
I'm saying right now, USA, Israel trying to switch
The regime.
government in the Iran, and even though if they achieve that, uh, I I believe that Iran would go back through the cycle again. So the new spoiled population would be so they would be so how it called so appealed by communism and other stuff, and they would like the revolution and stuff like that, because I see that the same thing in Europe and USA. So basically what I'm trying to say by this, the 80% of population are retards, and they basically follow wherever you told them to go.
So let me
So no
ask you
matter
this.
what you do there,
Let me ask you this.
you're
If
not going to fix Iran.
so, if Russia were to turn into a democracy, right? Do you think people would go back to being communists?
If Russia turned to democracy, we will return to 90s. You know what was happening in 90s?
In the 1990s? Of
Yes.
course. That why do you think you would just go back to that though? Why would people want to go back to that?
Because that's what people are.
So you just think history just repeats itself and people just don't learn from history?
Of course, they don't learn from the history. Otherwise, for example, uh, history lessons like says you cannot appease the dictator or something, right? Like in back then, England, USA, other countries were trying to appease Hitler, and it didn't work, right?
Right, but we've also learned a lot since the 1930s and
And now
40s.
Europeans trying to appease Chinese dictator and Iranian dictator. So they haven't learned anything. What they've done, they found new justification for that appeasement, like inclusion. We all cultures are equal and other stuff. So they making up some bullshit to basically push that mentality.
Let me ask you this. So why do you think countries like France, right, Germany, England, why are they so welcoming to Muslims in those countries? What do you think the reason is?
It is not about Muslims. It's about welcoming. It's about
Well, I'm specifically
noble
asking
stuff.
about Muslims. Why do you think they do it with Muslims?
Because for example, the worst type of racism in USA is to be racist against black person. The worst type of racism to be in the UK, for example, is to be racist against Muslim. Why is that? Because it depends. Your concerns about certain stuff depends on the pressure you get from certain population. So in USA, black community is powerful. So therefore, they putting pressure on white population. So white population starting to be concerned about black again racism against blacks. While in the UK, the Middle Eastern population community is more bigger and powerful. So they putting pressure on white people, and now white people concerned about their causes. That's where it's coming from.
See, I have to disagree with you. I don't think a country like Iran would go back to communism at all. Um, again,
It wouldn't go back to communism if then it would go back to Islamism.
I don't think it would go to either one. Dude, you got to understand,
So
this country, they've literally burned 500 mosques in a month. You know, they look at Islam as a symbol of oppression. They killed
because
thousands of us under the name of Islam. Why would they welcome that back in?
Because in England, for example, when there were grooming gangs, and the white people who weren't affected by grooming gangs didn't care about them. As soon as it started to affect them, they start to become more against that grooming gangs and against the immigration. So people concerned about something, as soon as they are bothered by it, as soon as they are like pressured by it. So in Iran, you're saying they are burning mosques. They're burning mosques because they are being oppressed by Islam.
Right.
But after one generation, there would be a generation which wasn't oppressed by Islam. So they would be appealed.
See, that's where I disagree with you, because I think they would just look back on history and they just be like, yeah, we don't want that. Fuck that.
So why aren't Europeans looking back to history then?
Say that one more time.
Why aren't Europeans looking back to history then, when they are doing what they are doing right now?
Europeans. So Europeans, as far as Islam and why they're falling for the same traps that Iran fell for, I think a lot of it has to do with money. A lot of it has to do with money. Countries like Qatar, countries like Saudi Arabia, they send a shit ton of money to schools, and they give money. Prince Charles, look how much donations he's taken from fucking Saudi Arabia.
So you see, when there are money, you forgot history lessons.
Well, the elites, but I'm saying the people themselves, like in Iran, I don't think they would forget it. But the reason why they're so welcoming to Muslims and they're so tolerant of Islam taking over European countries, I think is because a lot of the elites are taking money from Saudi Arabia, and in return, they're letting them spread Islam.
For those elites? Who voting for those elites again and again and again? Who? The population.
Not the mass population though. The average person has nothing to do with the elites.
If average person have nothing to do with the elites, so what those elites are relying on? If they don't have popularity, if they don't have support, are they like doing themselves? They're like, we are in charge here and we are going to force you.
Well, I mean, every country is different. A lot of it could be getting votes through propaganda, through lies. It could just be fake voting. I mean, I can't speak on every European country. I don't know how they stay in power, but I mean, people like Prince Charles. I mean, it's a monarchy. So I mean,
I'm saying even the like homogeneous population and the population which always was like advanced, like ahead of other countries, even the population like European populations are buying into this bullshit. So the Iranian nation is consists of different ethnicities, first of all. Second of all, it doesn't have that much experience living in the advanced, civilized, like...
That's not true at all.
It have been lived under that civilized...
Iran is not like a desert.
For a few decades. But Europeans were living under that for centuries, and yet they want to be looked like third world countries.
Yeah, but also because Europe hasn't recently gone through an oppression.
So what I'm saying, even if Europe cannot maintain itself as civilized place, how come do you think Iran would be able to do that?
Because, like I said, Iran is currently going through an oppression. Europe has not gone through an oppression since Hitler. So they may have forgotten over the last 100 years. Iran, it's very still fresh on our mind because they're doing massacres daily to us. You know, Europe hasn't seen those days for 100 years, bro. Almost 100 years. You know?
So what I'm saying, even if Europe want to be looked like Iran, how come do you think Iran itself wouldn't like to be looked like Iran right now in the next one or second generation?
Again, in 100 years, it might be. I don't know in 100 years. But I don't think if Iran gets fixed, I don't think it's going to go back to extreme Islam in my lifetime. In 100 years, I don't know. Maybe, who knows? Because again, you're right. Like, history does repeat itself. You look at Europe, they went through fascism. Now they're basically signing up for it again. They're like, yeah, give us more of that shit. But it's been 100 years, you know?
The thing is, I was doing research about why certain civilization collapse. for example, Roman Empire, nobody did it. They did it to themselves. So basically, any civilization peaks and it starts to eat
Of
itself,
course, yeah.
to destroy itself. So what I understood is that it is like tree. You cannot make tree live forever. It has its time. So every civilization has its
It
time,
grows back. I understand what you're saying.
and it dies. It grows, it dies. So that's what happening in Europe. And what I'm saying that what I understood that if you're doing revolution, basically you assume that population is good, government is bad. But the thing is, government is a reflection of population. And if you do that revolution, basically you turn the people from their uh, from their system, which is suitable for their mentality, to something different, and that can break them. Do you understand what I'm
I
saying?
understand what you're
So
saying, but
basically,
I can't apply that to Iran though, because the Iranian regime and the government is not a reflection of the people. They're not even Iranian for the most part, because again, most of the leaders are not even Iranian. They're Iraqi. They're from other countries like Pakistan, Afghani. So they're not a real reflection of the Iranian people. Hence the reason why they won a revolution, because even the flag that we have now, it's not even in our fucking language. The flag is in Arabic. It's not a reflection of our people.
for example, Iraq, then what it was then? Gaddafi, Libya.
Gaddafi was Libya, yeah.
Yes. So those countries were dictatorships, and they somehow were operating. But as soon as Western power took away the dictator away from that place, what happened there?
Right, but those countries, again, those are different. You're comparing Iraq, you're comparing Egypt, you're comparing, Libya. Those countries, there was no backup plan, so there was no opposing side that could replace the leadership. So they were just kind of taken out rogue, and it was just left for extreme militias to take over the country. With Iran, there is a backup plan. There's already the Shah that's looking to be the transitional leader, and 80-90% of the country's behind that. So there's a difference. But with Saddam Hussein, when they took him out, there was nobody that Iraq was supporting to take over. You know what I mean?
What I'm trying to say, for example, there is war right now, right?
Yeah.
So so many people are dying. There are so many damages and so on. So let's say at the end you manage to switch that power, but don't you think that maybe then it is not going to work or something, and all the sacrifice was made?
Yeah, but at the same time, that's the risk that I think almost every Iranian is willing to take, because it's like, well, do we risk it and maybe it stays the same, or maybe it gets worse, or do we just stick to what we know that hasn't worked for us for the last 47 years, which is them literally just like, again, this regime, you got to understand, man. I mean, when they jail women for their nail polish and hijab, their mind state is that it's okay to rape this woman, because in Islam, you rape a woman so they don't go to heaven. I mean, this is the mindset that the regime is. Like, this is not.
Do you know what religion is? Do you know what the religion is? Religion is something which justifies someone's urges, very negative urges. So, for example, if someone wants to behead people, he would be attracted to certain parts of Islam, because it not just permits it, allows it, it encourages it. So religion is something like somebody can understand that he is very little bit bad person, but there is certain religion which tells him that what he is doing is noble.
Right. Which is why I'm against all religion. I'm against all organized religion. I don't think any of it is helpful.
So what they're doing there with the woman and other stuff, they're doing that because they are sick themselves.
I agree.
I agree. I'm not justifying. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
Religion has nothing to do with it.
It's the loophole. It's their legal loophole to do crazy shit and get away with it and say, oh, it's written in our holy book and this is okay. This is law. I get it. You're right.
For example, if they see the girl without the
hijab,
not covering girls, they start to strike them. They start to humiliate them. Then they rape them. all of those groups of people who doing that, they're doing that because they want to do that, and they getting justification from
it. Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say, it is within its mentality of people which makes them to do that. So I'm saying, when you're doing revolution, that means you might bring system which people aren't ready for.
I understand that. It might be a war system. I understand that. But that's what I'm saying. I think most people are willing to take that risk because the regime that we have now is already a nightmare. So they're saying, we're willing to take the risk to see what's next, you know.
But if you manage to take power there, you have to inform people constantly. You have to explain them. There should be free speech, no censor and other stuff. Otherwise, you would go back through that cycle again.
Yeah. Well, plus, I mean, for decades, I would say at least for 2 decades, there's probably going to be civil war back and forth continuously because there's still going to be 10, 20 million people that support that regime that are still left in Iran.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. You have to do your info war against those people.
Yeah, it's going to be a war.
Debating them, killing their ideas. Otherwise, if you just try to ignore them or censor them, you would hand them victim card through which they would play the new revolution.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah.
Do you is your society grown enough to understand those stuff? Because as I can see, a lot of societies just ignore those type of people, and then they ended up with the revolution.
No, I think,
for example, Shah was ignoring those kind of people, and he wasn't debating them or doing info war against them, basically. And what he did, he ignored them. He jailed them. He canceled them, which handed them a victim card. And in the mind of people, the person who is oppressed, no matter which person he is, he would be more supported by the humans.
No.
So I'm saying that's the complex thing you're trying to get into. Are you really willing to take that?
I think most of us are willing to take that risk, man. I think most of us are willing to take that risk.
It is not just about risk. It's about totalitarianism, or for example, when you follow ideology, it is like, when you're trying to hold balance, ideology allows you to lean onto one place, like extreme. That's what we call left extremism or right extremism. It allows people to lean onto one side, and it is easy. Just follow rules.
Right.
Okay. But if you're trying to get rid of ideologies, that means you need to balance. That takes more.
Which, you mentioned the Shah, and he kind of ignored, his own people, which,
So basically, he leaned onto the one side. Do you understand what I'm?
Right. No, I understand what you're saying.
So you need to make that constantly, that we're keeping balance all the time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So his son is a little different. His son has learned what his father did and how it did not work. So I'm not sure if you've seen any of those interviews, but he's mentioned several times that he wants that balance where everybody feels a part of Iran. He doesn't want to. He even welcomed atheists. He said atheists are welcome, Islamists are welcome, Christians, Jews, whatever you are, as long as you can stay balanced and normal and not be an extremist either way, you're welcome in Iran. You don't even have to believe in a religion, a god, or anything. So he's trying to include everyone, so that way we don't have this mixture of almost civil war, where we have these extremist sides, whether it's the leftists, the extreme Islamists. He's trying to include everyone, so we can hopefully try to make it work.
Let me ask you this. Is the Iranian nation grown enough to handle free speech?
I think most of Iran, yes. I think most of Iran. The portion that I'm worried about is the regime supporters. The rest of the country is very much ready for Western values such as freedom of speech.
The thing is, in the West, there is no free speech.
There's more than most countries. The fact that I can walk around in America and shit on Trump if I want to, I can't do that in Iran. That's freedom of speech.
again, it is not though. It's regulated speech. You know why?
Well, it's
Because there are
always going to be
things,
regulated to a certain extent. It's, I mean,
and that's what the people who with evil intentions. That's what they use.
so
For example, to to uh, to control internet, what they come up with. They come up with we fighting against child stuff,
yeah,
like
I get it.
thing against racism, other stuff. So basically, if there is regulation of free speech, for example, it's going to end up with censorship. That's what happened to the Europe, and that's what is happening in USA as well.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
again, I'm saying that can people handle free speech without regulation? If they cannot, then they are that the system
well, there's
is not
always going
going
to be
to.
regulation, though. There's never going to be fully complete free speech. It doesn't even exist in America, you know?
And that's why there are so much problems right now in
Yeah, but when
America.
I say free speech, I mean something comparable to America. I don't mean a full blown where you can just say whatever the hell you want. I don't think that's going to exist in any country, you know? Like, for
Then
example, in America, I don't know if you know this or not. In America, you can burn an American flag. That's legal. You cannot burn an Israeli flag in America.
so there is no free speech, freedom of expression.
That's what I'm saying, though. It's regulated to a certain extent, you know? It's You're
So
never going to get full freedom.
and that's where abuse come from.
Yeah, but that's never. I mean, so okay. So you're in Russia. Would you say you're free in Russia more
I'm
than
not,
America? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. America's as free as you're gonna get, but it's still not fully
and I
free.
even know more that Russian society is not grown enough to handle free speech.
I don't think most societies are to handle full free speech. I don't think America is ready for full free speech, which we don't have full. I mean, no country is. I mean, if you look at it that way, I mean, it's not just Iran. Nobody's ready for it then. You know, when I'm saying free speech, I mean something comparable to what we have here, or we have. Well, I would say Canada, but Canada doesn't have free speech. You can't even.
For example, if we that word free speech was kind of distorted or something. Like free speech means free speech. There shouldn't be but. If there is free speech, it should be total, absolute
I
free
agree with
speech.
that. I agree with that, but it's just not
If
the
there,
reality, though. You know.
yeah, if there any regulation, any that already goes to the regulated speech.
Yeah, I agree with that. It goes against the definition of free speech. I get it, but it's just, that's just kind of what we've operated under forever. That's never going to change. We're gonna. This is as much, and they're taking more freedom daily. As far as you mentioned censorship, like movies. You go on streaming. Half of these movies are censored now. They've taken certain scenes out because this was racist 30 years ago. It's like, okay, well, you still need to include it. That's censorship. It's part of history. Just include it.
Do you see how that censorship grows? It starts from the one,
Yeah.
two, three stuff, then it like pyramid. It becomes that huge brick. For example, in UK, for example, there are more arrests for the speech than there here in Russia, for example, because that's where they end up with that censorship. Because why I brought UK as an example, because it was the first country who was like, we have free speech and so on, and even them, they failed to uphold the free speech.
Yeah, they failed miserably. Yeah, they don't have free speech at all anymore.
So that's what I'm saying. If you wouldn't have absolute free speech in Iran, you would end up again like with the same problems like Europe, USA, UK, even worse, maybe even worse.
Even if that's the case, though, at least we'll get a break for 20 years. I'll take it, man. If we can have a free country for 20 years, I'll take it. It's better than what we have right now,
But that's the point. There are so much sacrifices for that.
It's going to be sacrifices either way, though. They've been killing us for 47 years, man. This isn't like there's more people dying now than, 3,000 people died in this war so far? They were going to kill way more than 3,000 people in the next couple of months themselves, So it's obviously it sucks that people are going to die and thousands will die, but thousands were going to die either way by the hands of the IRGC. So I I know what you're saying, but it's just unfortunate because the government itself, they were going to ensure that all those people died anyway. So if those people were going to die anyway, let's at least risk it for a possible free country so that their kids can see a light at the end of the tunnel and maybe live for free for 20 years or 30 years, you know, hopefully for a lifetime.
Also, another thing that Iran is made up of different ethnicities. So how are you going to unite those ethnicities?
So Iran, you know, we have Armenians. The Armenians, they get along with everybody for the most part. They're pretty welcome. They still have their churches. Nobody bothers them. Assyrians, nobody really bothers. We have Turks. Turks are welcome. Nobody bothers them. We have about 5% Arabs. Nobody bothers them. The main one that is the Kurds. The Kurds are the kind of the ones that have not felt welcome in the region for the most part because they're in Turkey, Syria, Iran, Iraq. But again, the Kurds in Iran are a little different than the ones that are in Syria and Iraq and Turkey because those ones, they're separatists. They want their complete own country. They don't want to identify as Turkish people or Iraqis or anything like that. The ones in Iran, they identify first as Iranian, then Kurdish. So they're prideful in being Iranian. So that's one of my least worries, to be honest with you. My main worries is the IRGC Arabs. Those are the ones that I'm worried about, you know, because again, I don't identify them as Iranian. They're not Iranian people, you know.
So basically, what you were talking about is about different communities coexisting.
Which again, most of them I think can coexist. It's just the Arabian extreme Muslims in Iran.
Yes, they can coexist, but also that coexistence can be broken by the outside forces and bring tension between those communities, which would break your society.
Which is why I was saying there's going to be a civil war, without a doubt. There's going to be a civil war because there's going to be a power struggle because there is different groups. You're right. There's different factions.
That's what I'm asking. Is there a mechanism to unite those people?
I think Reza Shah. That's the one because again, the Kurds are the main ones that have felt separated from Iran, and they're supporting Reza Shah. They don't support any of the IRGC or any of the Muslim governments.
Because Kurds, they feel like they've been oppressed or something because they had, as I know, I don't know if it's true or not, they had their own land, their own country, in that land was ripped off by different other countries. Basically, it's coming from the British Empire or something like that. So that's why they feel like their lands were taken away from them, and that's why they feel that way, I guess. But you cannot fix that problem because basically you got to give up your territories.
Yeah.
To do that.
So the Kurds, the same thing that would happen with like Israel, essentially. You know, like they would have to give them land, which I don't think is going to happen.
No. If you give them autonomy or certain land, like separate land within the Iran, you're going to get Gaza or something like that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's not going to happen. They're not going to do that. You know.
But if you don't do that, it's going to anger them even more as well. So they're going to be
not in Iran though. Not in Iran though. That's what I'm saying though. They already own the mountains, the northern mountains in Iran, and they consider that Kurdistan. So they consider that already like their own area because there's no Persian Iranians around that region really. It's just all Kurdish people. You know, they have their own land already. It's just not a secular state. You know what I mean? Which is what they eventually want. But I think that's more so the Kurdish people in Turkey, Iraq, and Syria, because they're mistreated more than the Iranian ones. Now, I'm not saying everybody in Iran supports the Kurds in Iran, but out of those four countries, they're the most comfortable in Iran. They feel the most welcomed in Iran.
For example, when there is homogeneous nation, and there is people of one ethnicity, like in then Germany, Italy, and so on, when there is one nation, you can unite those people even without ideology based on the kinship. Like prioritizing their own ethnicity or something, you can unite them. It's easy, but when there is different ethnic groups living within one country, it's going to be very complex to maintain.
Yeah. Let me look at America. America can't get along, you know.
So that's what I'm asking. Have you even thought about that problem? Because I live in the region. There are a lot of different ethnicities within one land, and we cannot get along.
Yeah, but the common denominator is that all these factions have been oppressed by this regime. That's the one thing that kind of brings us under the umbrella. Is that the Kurds, they get slaughtered left and right by the IRGC. So they're on the same side as us. You know, they're trying to get rid of them also. They would rather have Reza Shah back because they're like, hey, we don't identify as Muslims. Like, we would rather have this guy back because at least we can wave our Kurdish flag high and not get slaughtered for it. You know, so in that sense, we are on the same team. Armenians, same thing. They love Reza Shah because they're Christians, and they don't want an Islamist government, so they're okay with them leaving. You know, the Turks, the Iranian Turks, same thing. You know, again, my main worry is just the IRGC supporters. That's kind of my main worry. The 9-10 million they have of that, which is a lot. You know.
Are you yourself Persian?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you follow any religion or something?
No.
No. So, for example, China, as I heard it from the Chinese guy, he says, what he said, China itself is homogeneous, but it wasn't that way. It was like European Union. And basically what they did throughout centuries is that eliminate local cultures, eliminate local...
They're doing it now. They're doing it now.
Shared identity to homogenize the whole country, to basically make one ethnicity, one culture, and so on. So, and I think that's why China is growing so fast as well, because that's their benefit. People feel like one identity, and
they're nationalists.
They're nationalists. Yes, but that's the Chinese people pragmatic, but other people wouldn't like that. So to eliminate their Kurdish identity or Armenian identity within Iran, people wouldn't like that. So I'm saying, if you're not going to have policy to wash out cultures and basically homogenize all the communities within the land, you're going to end up with collapse at the end.
I have to disagree because, you know, I look at Iran and I compare it to America. You know, you have people that are, you know, Hispanic backgrounds. You have people that are, you know, African American. You have all kinds of different walks of life. They still identify first as American and then Mexican or, you know, whatever else. It's the same thing in Iran. You know, like, again, the Kurds, they identify as Iranian first, then Kurd. You know, I have you know, people that I know that are Armenian Iranian, they consider themselves Iranian first, you know. So I don't think a lot of them, because again, it's been generations and generations born in Iran. So it's not like they're first generation Armenian Iranian, you know what I mean? They know Iran, they're more familiar with Iran than Kurdistan, Turkey, or Armenia.
That's the thing. For example, when you're talking about America, you said everyone identify as American, but there is but. They say I'm Afro-American, I'm Mexican, and so they can. It is like European Union again. They're like living under one land, right. But again, they feel like different communities.
And that's always going to exist in Iran. There's always going to be Armenian, Iranian. We're never going to be able to eliminate that. Nor do we want to. You know, I don't want Iran to be all Persians, because that's not our identity. You know, it's been a mixed bag for thousands of years. You know what I mean?
Okay, what I'm trying to say is that can you uphold the house of big family which has different from the different blood, and they feel like different people?
I think you can, because we already did that. We already did that for decades under the Shah. It was fun. Everybody was happy for decades until he got too big. That's when it went downhill. You know?
For example, before European Union, and when each country in Europe was independent, mm-hmm. They were controlling their own borders and stuff.
Right.
There was not such a unrest like it is right now in Europe. Why that happened? That unrest happened in Europe because the countries within the European Union gave up their sovereignty to control their resources, their borders, migration policy, and so on. So therefore, it was controlled by the center at the top, and that center at the top, he can be Belgian guy, for example, and he wouldn't be bothered that much about struggles of the Polish people or Italian people. So therefore, his policies would be which would undermine their interests. You understand what I'm saying? So why is that? Because that Belgian guy don't feel like Italian, so he wouldn't be bothered about his causes. So that's the problem when there is no homogeneous society. You understand?
Yeah, but that's still a little different though, because you're comparing a continent to a country that has different types of people inside.
But the underlying concept is the same. There are different.
It is, but it's different though, because you mentioned like the Belgian people. They don't necessarily, they don't have the same mindset as the Italians, which is obviously very true. But they're two complete different countries that don't really cross paths. Now, Armenian Iranians and Turkish Iranians, they do cross paths because they're under the same country. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's a little different.
Are they living in different regions?
No. Kurds do.
They're like
Kurds do. The Kurdish do. They live in the mountains. But the Turks, the Armenians, they're just mixed in with us. Arabs, same thing. They're mixed in with us. We used to have a ton of Jews in Iran. Jews were all over Iran. They just had to leave once the IRGC took over. But they were welcomed in Iran. The Jews, if you go back, you'll see tons of Jews, with yarmulkes and schools and stuff. It was fine.
I believe that if you want to build a country which is going to be maintained and stable for long enough, so it would be worth to start to build it. If there is homogeneous society and if there is if the population can handle free speech, for example, those like fundamental stuff for me, homogeneity and free speech, and what also maybe capitalism or something, so people would be independent. But if you don't have those components, I think country can definitely fail.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of unanswered questions. It's uncharted territory for the country because, again, it's been under this oppression for 50 years almost. So, I mean, a lot of this is kind of in the gray area where we don't really know what's going to happen. But at the same time, it's like, do we just sit here and just let this regime continue because we don't want to risk it and we don't know what the future is going to hold? Or do we take that risk and possibly see a brighter future or end up in the same spot? But we at least already know what we're dealing with. This does not work. Whatever is in the country now does not work. So anything is worth the risk for us.
I'm saying you've seen that in the past something was wrong and it wasn't working. So that's why you were failing. So
right.
Basically that's how you ended up where you are. So basically that means fundamentally within your components of your society there is something wrong and there need change.
Right.
So the thing is, for the greater country, for the greater future and society, are you willing to take that responsibility for the radical changes and maybe stand up for some people who are going to resist and basically implement those stuff?
Yeah, I think that.
So for example, Singapore, it was a very poor country and there are different ethnic group of people, but they took very radical approach to build the country, and even now there is still no democracy, as I know. But they've managed it to make a country, but basically it is still not democracy as well. So, do you see what I'm saying? Like, it takes a lot from you. It is not like you set up something and you like resting.
No, I understand that. I understand that. I think the biggest proof that I can honestly give you is the fact that you have to understand how desperate a country has to be practically begging a foreign country to invade their land and bomb them. And you can go on Instagram and look for this yourself. When Iran was first getting bombed, people were in the streets cheering. People were cheering that they're getting bombed. So I think when you're asked like, are they willing to take that risk? I think that kind of answers the question right there. If they're willing to get bombed, they're willing to take that risk to unite and hopefully have a better future. But I don't have the answers. It might not work. It might not work. But I think they're desperate
Well,
enough where everybody's willing to take that risk.
risk taking is basically like going to the war or something. But what I'm basically talking about is self management, like uh, managing yourself constantly.
That is a risk, though.
It is like
It's a
change of
risk.
life.
It is a risk though, because you're giving a country essentially freedom to self manage, like you're saying, after they've been under a dictatorship for 5 decades. That's a risk because you don't really know what's going to happen because it's uncharted territory. They're not familiar with that concept, so it is a risk to take that. And that's what I mean by a risk
So
is that like we don't, it's uncharted territory for the country because again the younger generation they've never lived under a free umbrella. They've never lived under the banner of a free Iran. So that's what I'm saying by risk.
no, if Iran succeeds, it would be great for me as well because I can would bring it as an example or even take some aspects of how you managed stuff for my own society. But the thing is, people understand that taking risk, taking away that the ones who in charge, like we basically take those people away, and everything is going to like work by itself. Like
No, it's going to take a long time. I think it's going to take decades. I think people think you're going to just wave around this magic wand where Trump comes, drops a couple bombs, free Iran, everybody takes the hijab off, everybody's happy. That's not reality. I don't think that's going to happen. It's going to be a war for decades. Not with America. I mean, a civil war internally, where for decades we have to kind of, get rid of this brainwashing that we've had over the last 50 years because, you don't just wash that away overnight.
for example, South Koreans,
Hmm?
they basically the entire history of their existence they were living poorly, and they basically when there's like village kind of life, like villagers, and the villager and the person who living in the city, they basically have different how it's called mentality.
Yeah, different perspectives.
So uh, South Koreans do realize that, and they started to actively work on themselves and even change their own mentality. So that mentality would be suitable for that advanced country which they're building. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's why they succeed, and that's why they are keep going. So that's what I'm saying. If you turn Iran with the same mindset into the South Korea, it's not going to work. People wouldn't be able to handle that because there is different mindset. It is like putting villager into the city.
Keep in mind, though, man, with the power of internet nowadays, you'd be surprised how many Iranians are familiar with the Western mindset of free speech and having the options of freedom of choice with all around everything. Like, do me a favor. I know it's getting pretty late for me. It's almost 5 a.m. here, so I gotta go in a second. But if you have some time tomorrow, man, go on YouTube and just type in like Iran 2024, 2000. Just watch some people doing some vlogs in Iran, walking around, and listen to them and look at their mentality. This is the younger generation. They act just like us here. It's just they don't have that freedom. But with internet, they have access to see what's going on with the rest of the world. So it's not necessarily like a foreign concept to them. It's something they've been dreaming of, but it's not foreign to them. They're very aware of how the West operates as far as, in America, in Europe, et cetera, et cetera. So they've been dreaming.
Are they bigger? Are they bigger part of the society?
Absolutely, absolutely. A larger portion of the society are freak thinkers. Absolutely, absolutely.
If it's like that, then it might work.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It's most of the country is forward thinkers, where they're a lot more lenient and accepting of new ways and willing to learn and adapt. But I mean, obviously, there's always going to be that 20%, which is the problem. That's the main challenge. But hey, man, it's getting pretty late for me. It's almost 5 a.m. here. But hey, man, love the conversation. It's been a pleasure, man. I hope you stay safe out there. All right.
Okay.
All right, man. Stay safe.